Hey everyone, welcome on to Branded. So, when your visuals are like really on point, but your messaging is kind of meh, that's what this episode is about this week. We're going to talk about what's really going on behind the scenes of your brand and your business. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, welcome. Today's episode might ruffle a few feathers, but I say it all with love because I want your business to thrive the way it's intended to. So if you've ever looked at your stunning visuals and you felt really proud of your website, your logo, right, all your assets, but you're thinking to yourself, why the hell is no one buying? Or why is it slower than I'm expecting it to be? That's what this episode is about. So we're going to dig in. We're going to start with what really is messaging, anyways, right? People talk about it and you're like, yes, that's what I need. But when it comes down to it, do you really know what you're talking about when you're thinking about the messaging for your brand? So we're going to kind of get to some basics here because it's not just your tagline. Your messaging is not just your Instagram bio. Your messaging is not just what's on your about page. It is quite literally the heartbeat of your brand because it's how you're communicating, who you help, what you do, and why it even matters. That's the heartbeat of your brand. And if that message isn't super clear, isn't super aligned, and you're not super confident in delivering it, then a really beautiful brand isn't going to save you. Here's kind of a little bit of a odd truth, I guess you could say. People don't buy the best offers. You would think they would, right? Like it would make sense, but they don't. People buy the one that makes the most sense to them. So that's why your messaging is so important because you're not talking to the masses. As much as you think you want to be talking to the masses, trust me, you don't. You want to be talking to the people that you want to work with. So, yes, your product, your service, it can serve thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, right? But do you want to work with all of those people? Are they aligned with your values, right? So, this is where the messaging can really help to sort of cut through all of that noise and talk directly to the people you actually want to be working with. When I first launched Social Jane Media, honestly, I felt really good about my brand. Like it was dialed in, it felt like. My website felt really beautiful. I sort of was developing this signature style of, this minimalist, but keeping with like the blacks and the whites and the grays. But my inquiries that I was getting, like people that were looking to work with me or curious about what I was doing, they were a little bit all over the place. And this was because of my messaging. It was not because my website was beautiful and it was dialed in, and yet they were still confused. No, it was my messaging. So here's an example. Like one week, I would be working with, let's say, someone who's like a life coach, right? And the next week, I would have someone who's like a nonprofit financial advisor reaching out to me saying, I need a logo like yesterday. So those are very different people, right? If I'm working with a life coach who has this sort of long term vision for their brand and they want someone that's going to help them create that, that's the work I love to do. But when someone comes to me and says, hey, I need a logo in, T minus 30 minutes, and I need it for this type of business, and I need it to have this, this, and this. Okay, well, I like that you know what you want, but that's not the way I operate, right? I operate from a place of getting to know the client and what they want for themselves and for their business. And I was getting that sort of these varying inquiries. And the reason that was happening is because of my messaging. So until I got really super clear on what I actually wanted to do, was capable of doing, wanted to spend my time doing, right? Until I got super clear on who I wanted to do that for. Like maybe I don't want to be in the financial nonprofit space because I don't understand it quite as much as I do some of the more intuitive, grounded, healing, that side of space. It doesn't mean that I won't have that client down the road, but it does mean that that's not necessarily in my wheelhouse right now. It's not where my brain is. It's not where my particular path right now is taking me. So if my messaging is taking me there and I'm getting those inquiries, but those aren't the people I want to work with, there's a disconnect, right? So you got to get super clear on what you actually want to do, the work you want to do, who you want to actually do that work with, and what result you can get them. Like confidently, every time you work with somebody, you can get them this result. So until you get super clear on that, you're going to have that sort of like wishy washy feeling in your brand. And so once I did those things, that's when everything started to change. My messaging was the problem, it wasn't my visuals. So instead of spending hours in Canva trying to fix my visuals, I needed to really get clear on my messaging because beautiful brands, they still struggle. Trust me. Those gorgeous grids you see on Instagram, if you really were to talk to some of those business owners, I bet you they're struggling with some sort of foundational piece of their business that they've yet to figure out, either because it's not their zone of genius, they haven't found the right person to help them, or they simply don't know to look for it yet. And that's why these episodes are so helpful for me and hopefully for you, because it can get those wheels turning of like, okay, yes, this is a part of my business that maybe I've been either intentionally ignoring or unintentionally ignoring because I didn't really know to look at it. So, yes, beautiful brands, they do still struggle. And this is where most business owners actually get a little bit stuck because they invest in the visual side of their business first. It's the exciting part. Like, I totally get it. You see, like, the mood board, the logo, you've got, all these beautiful fonts that pair really great together, and it feels like progress. And it is progress, but it's not where you stop, right? If your brand has all the visuals of like an intuitive and grounded business coach. This is an example for you. But all your copy basically sounds like all you do is sell planners on Etsy. There's like a disconnect there happening, right? And that disconnect, all it's doing is creating doubt in the audience that you're presenting to. And honestly, it creates a lot of doubt for yourself too, because you start to think, like, well, what is it that I'm actually doing? Because people keep coming to me trying to buy planners on Etsy, but I'm trying to book, a 6-month package for a business coach. Like, that's a very different thing. So, here are some like signs that you can look for to see whether your messaging might be a little bit off. Even if your branding and your visuals feel very on point, these are some signs that your messaging and your copy might be a little bit off the mark. First, you're getting the wrong kind of inquiries. Kind of like I mentioned just a moment ago. If you're attracting people that either can't afford you, they don't really value your work and what you do, or they're coming to you and asking for something completely different than what you actually do, then you're not really clearly communicating what your offer is. And I know that might sound a little bit harsh, but that's one of the absolute quickest and easiest ways to see if your messaging is landing where you want it to. Are you attracting people that can afford you? Do they value the work that you're presenting? And are they continuously asking for something different than what you're telling them you offer? If you're answering these questions, with like, "Ugh, I don't really know," then yeah, it might be time to dial in the messaging, right? Another big like red flag you can look for when it comes to your messaging is, are you constantly like tweaking your website copy, your Instagram bio, your elevator pitch? Are you constantly just changing it, completely scrapping it and starting over? Because if you are, then, that kind of means that you're not necessarily confident in the messaging that you're presenting to the world. And confident messaging creates that consistency, right? So if you're changing it weekly, you haven't quite landed on the truth of what you're looking to convey for your brand yet. And that's okay. Honestly, I went through, it felt like forever, but it was probably maybe like 3 months when I first launched my business. I had a pen and paper on my desk at all times because I would have these little like pings of inspiration where I was like, oh, I could put this in my Instagram bio. Oh, I could put this on my about page. Oh, I could change the copy on this. I was still very unsure of what I wanted my messaging to be because I was too concerned with like having all of these sort of buzzwords and this like fluff to make it sound really great. When in the end, I just needed it to be super clear. And so I've like trimmed all the fat at this point now. And I'll give you an example of that here in a minute. The third thing you can look out for to really see if your messaging needs to be dialed in a little bit, do you feel awkward when you're selling your offers? Selling will feel very, very hard for you when your messaging is misaligned. It just will. You can't confidently pitch what you can't confidently articulate. I struggled with this in the very beginning as well. And it was because I wasn't quite sure of what I really wanted my offer to be. What kind of work do I really want to present to the world? And I totally get it if you're at a place where you're like, well, I don't want to sell myself short. I can do all of these things. You totally can, but do you have the time in your day to do all of these things? Right? Like I have people ask me all the time if social media management is something that I do, not because I advertise that in any way, but because it is a highly sought after skill that people want, right? They expect that when someone does websites and emails and funnels and systems that they can also do social media. And yes, I can. But guess what I don't have? Time in my day to do social media management. And that's what I tell people whenever they ask. So that's something that maybe I could put in my messaging. No time for social media management. Ask for requests or recommendations. So see, as I'm talking to you about this, that's maybe a little bit of a refinement that I could make in my own messaging is that I help with the actual brand and the systems and the foundational elements, not necessarily the day-to-day operations such as social media management, right? So these are things we're constantly learning. And that's why I do these episodes because I'm learning the same as you're learning. We're growing, we're evolving together, and it's just really fucking cool. So, those three things, if you're getting the wrong kind of inquiries, if you're constantly tweaking your messaging and your copy on like your Instagram and your website, and if you feel really awkward selling, then it's time to dial in your messaging a little bit and don't focus on the visuals of it, focus on the messaging. So, here's what this looks like in action. A little example for you. I've got a client who comes to me. She has a gorgeous brand in mind, right? She's got these muted earth tones, these like fun fonts, perfectly posed photos, right? She had them professionally done. So from the outside, she is a total vibe. And I'm like, oh, I love it. I'm loving it. But she said her title, right? Her title, what she calls herself, is a holistic business coach for intuitive entrepreneurs. And so I ask, well, what does that mean? Because I bet you someone who's scrolling her Instagram is probably like, what does that mean? Right? Not everybody knows what all of these words, these connotations mean. And obviously, you want to be working with the people that do know these things. But how about instead of using the cute, the clever, all of that, just be really fucking clear about what you do? Because that's where you're going to cut through that noise and talk directly to the person you want to be talking to. So she couldn't explain what she did, right? Whenever I'm like, can you explain that to me? And her sales page, when we go to look at the like assets that she already has created, it's full of like all of these buzzwords and like aspirational kind of fluff, right? It's just sort of fluff. And there's zero specifics about what results she can actually provide to people that pay her money. People love her content, right? It's beautiful. It really draws people in, but no one's buying. What's the problem here? So after talking through it a little bit, we go from holistic business coach for intuitive entrepreneurs to something very clear, such as I help overbooked service providers streamline their business and reclaim 10 plus hours a week. That's so much more clear, right? Now people know what she does, and nothing in her brand had to change, right? All the beautiful earth tones and the fun fonts and like the perfect photos, none of those things had to change. Her copy changed. Her clarity changed. Her confidence got a little bit better, right? So there's an example for you of what this can look like when your messaging just completely does that like 180 turn and gets really super clear. Because great messaging, it should answer a couple questions within like the first few seconds, like the first like probably 10 seconds or less. Who is this for? What are they going to get in return for the money they're providing you, their email address, whatever it is? What are they going to get? Why should they even trust you? So if you're not really answering these three questions right off the bat, then there's a little room for refinement there. And so here's what this can sound like. I help working moms get strong and lose weight in 30 minutes a day, no gym required, right? That's super clear. Designing conversion first websites for bold brands who are ready to scale. That is super clear. You don't need to be cute. You don't need to be clever. You just need to be clear. And if you want to lock in your messaging without like any kind of rebrand, right? This is not about overhauling everything. I've got a couple ways you can do this. One of them being you could simply rewrite your Instagram bio, right? Have it sort of as like the problem solution formula. And it doesn't even have to be a full statement. It could just be bullet points. It's really however you like to communicate. So you kind of start with like, I help or I work, I do, right? It's what are you doing, right? So I help blank, do, want, have blank, so they can get what? What result? So mine, for example, if you were to go to my Instagram or my Facebook or my TikTok, right? I keep it consistent across the board. There might be some place out there that I never go that it's old, but mine basically is working with business owners who want alignment and ease in their brand and systems. So it's pretty clear about like, I'm just looking to work with people who want to feel that alignment and also have it feel a little bit easier for them, for their whole brand and for the systems that run it. And this is the statement that I'm really loving right now. This is not what it always was. I've changed this a couple times because I didn't feel confident in what that messaging was. But as I continue to have that sort of reflective, introspective look at my own business, very unjudgmental, by the way. But when I do that a couple times a year, I inevitably make some tweaks to my copy because I've evolved a little bit, who I am. And as I have more and more clients, I have more and more experience about the things I want to continue doing and maybe the things I want to do less of. And so that refinement in turn refines my copy. It refines my messaging. Another thing you could do if you wanted to really lock in your messaging is revisit your website and just look at your homepage, right? What's at the very top of your homepage? Does it clearly say what you do? Or is it just chock full of buzzwords and like fluff? If you were to go to my website, socialjamedia.com, and take a peek at it, it really is quite simple. Right at the top, it literally just says, work with Sarah and focus more on what you love. Now, that is a relatively broad statement, but right underneath it, I clarify. Unlock your brand's potential with systems that work, websites that reflect your vision, and email marketing that authentically connects. So I'm telling people right away, hey, if you work with me, you're going to get more time back to focus on the things you love. And here's the ways that you can do it. So it's pretty clear about what working with me would look like. And of course, it gets very client specific as I dig further into a client's business. But at face value, this is the thing that I do. So that's something you could do this week is go look at your website. Does it really tell people what you do like right away? Or is it just full of buzzwords because, you had to fill it with something? Another thing you could do, and this is a really, really good one, especially if you have someone you trust, ask a couple friends, colleagues, mentors, whoever you feel comfortable with, but ask them, hey, go read my website. Or if you don't have a website yet, hey, go to my socials. let me know what you think my offer is. Like, let them tell you. And yes, they know you and they probably know what your offer is, but they're going to look at it with like that sort of extra detailed eye because they love you and they want to give you honest feedback. But if you ask people you know and people you trust, hey, can you go look at my assets, look at my website, look at my socials, and tell me what you think it is that I offer? Because if they hesitate or get it totally wrong, then there's a little bit of clarity work to do there. And that's okay, right? That's opportunity for growth. You most likely don't need a total rebrand. You probably don't need more Canva graphics. You definitely don't need more scripty fonts. You just need to get more clear. Because when your messaging is clear, your brand finally has that power underneath it to truly start to connect and then convert and work as it is intended to do. So if this episode sparked a little bit of clarity for you, or maybe helped you realize that, something's not been clicking and this is why, share it with a friend of yours who has a really beautiful brand, but might have some confusing messaging. You might help them have the breakthrough that they've been looking for, right? Share it with love. Tell them how much it helped you. And I'll see you next week because we're going to be talking about like burnout versus boredom in your brand and why they can be a little bit sneaky. So I hope to see you here next week and go refine your messaging, lock it in, dial it in, have your brand working the way it's supposed to, especially because it's so beautiful. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review. And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.